Our guest speaker for this afternoon is Mr. Mike Bellamy. He is the China Operations Director of PassageMaker Sourcing Solutions, a U.S.-owned company with China sourcing offices and assembly centers in Shenzhen, Dongguan, and Hebei. He moved to the region in 1994 and has structured sourcing programs in over 150 production classifications for U.S. and European clients. He has also worked with the Brock Group, an international trade and investment consulting firm founded by Bill Brock, who served as President Reagan's U.S. trade representative in Washington, D.C. And he later served as an export consultant to small U.S. businesses at the South Carolina Export Consortium. He is also a member of the American Chamber of Commerce. Here to tell you more about practical solutions to prevent your suppliers from turning into competitors, please welcome Mr. Mike Bellamy.
Thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to tell you right off the bat, we're going to talk about some scary things today. We're going to talk about intellectual property rights being stolen, piracy, counterfeiting, some of the horror stories that you might have read about in the press. But before we get into that, I really want to say that today's presentation is not a condemnation of all Chinese suppliers. These indiscretions happen all around the world, and certainly if you were to walk the aisles at a reputable show like Global Sources, 99% of the suppliers out there are worth doing business with and honest people. However, I believe that you do need to pray for the best but plan for the worst. So today I'd like to go over some strategies for protecting yourself from allowing your suppliers to become competitors. The real issue at hand, the problem is one of security. And by security, this is an issue for both large and small buyers alike. I'm really talking about how do you prevent your suppliers from becoming future competitors. In other words, we're looking at issues of, for example, legal use of brands, the stealing of your designs, running extra shifts with your molds and tooling and then sending it out the back door to other customers. And a worst case can be if your factory simply cuts you out of the loop and starts selling directly to your buyers, so getting cut out of the supply chain. It happens. Now, having said that, there certainly is an opportunity in China, and I firmly believe that while you tend to hear a lot of horror stories in the Western press, if you do your homework and set up some preventive measures in advance as a buyer, you can certainly protect yourself and achieve some of the cost reductions that we're all looking for in China. So today I really want to offer some practical solutions that even the small and medium-sized buyers can employ. Solutions should not compromise the quality, service, pricing, lead time. So it doesn't make sense if you have a locked-down, secure supply chain if it adds 15% to your bottom line. We have to find solutions that are not going to take away from our profit margins. I thought I'd start off today by explaining a little bit about my background and point of view. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, back in the U.S. I've been in Asia for about a decade, working full-time in mainland China for 7 years. As mentioned before, I work for an American company. We're both a manufacturing and a sourcing agency. We do injected plastics and fabricated metals at our Dongguan facility where I work. So every day I'm concerned with issues of supply chain management and security, both among my suppliers and among my buyers. A core part of our business, if we don't manufacture it in-house, so it's not made of metal or plastic, then we have a team of 15 project managers that report to me. They run all over China finding suppliers, deliver the components to our assembly center where we put it together and do inspection. Over the years, we've done over 150 production classifications, and 90% of them have tight security concerns where the customer is very worried that their concepts, branding could be compromised. So every day I'm concerned about security, both as a manufacturer and as an advisor to outside parties. However, even though I have spent a decade in Asia, I don't proclaim to be an expert on all things related to China. It's a constantly changing market. I learn new things every day. One of the quotes, or one of the facts I like to use, is that China has a quarter of mankind spread out over 4 million square miles. So today I'm hoping to simply share some of my experiences, some of the mistakes that I've made over the years, so that you can avoid them as you set up your own supply chain and consider security in China. Maybe to start off, we could look at what is the definition of IPR, or intellectual property rights. Most people realize that we're talking about trademarks, patent protection, But for the scope of today's talk, I'd like to extend IPR to include such things as sensitive buyer information, such as the export value, shipping destination, and customer and user identity, as well as the volume and market value of goods shipped. So this is sensitive information that you might not want your suppliers to know about. We all know that China's legal system is certainly coming into its own. It's evolving out of a communist system. It's made some great advancements in the last 5 years, certainly. However, as we know, China is a world-class production base, great pricing. Combine this with a rapid growth economy. You've got a lot of people in this changing society that will do anything they can to better their lives, and sometimes that leads them towards doing things such as counterfeiting and such. But my point is that while China is a dangerous place, at least from a security standpoint, it's full, ranging from indiscretions, from reverse engineering to blatant knockoffs. What we don't hear about so often in the press is that the person the counterfeiter or the knockoff artist that you should be worried about often isn't the Chinese supplier. It's your competition back home that take your product, bring it to China, and say to an innocent manufacturer, could you knock this off, or could you manufacture something similar to this? Change it here, change this spec. When it's rare that the manufacturer will develop a new product that they know is counterfeiting someone and try to sell into the marketplace. My point is that it's very much a pull rather than push strategy, this infusion of counterfeit and legitimate goods into the foreign market. So today I want to look at both how do you prevent your supplier from becoming a competitor, and how do you prevent your competition from hijacking the supply chain that you've spent so much time building on your own. I think you could say that there are 4 levels of integration or control of your supply chain that have different levels of security. For example, the most secure method, the sourcing option, is become the factory. For most mid-sized companies, it's not realistic, but for the large buyers who have significant volume, have for example, a standard product that's being made over and over again every day, with serious concerns about security, where you can't set up a joint venture, or you can't just teach a supplier how to manufacture your product because it's too sensitive. So in those cases, it does make sense to become the factory. Luckily, over the past 5 years at least, it's become increasingly less difficult to set up a WOFE, a wholly owned foreign enterprise, where it's your factory, you're the only investor, no joint venture partners involved. So that's a good way to control things, but once again, it's only relevant to the very largest of buyers. The second option for the mid-sized buyer, especially if they have sensitive information on the brand itself or in the packaging. For example, Walmart tells you they wanted to say, made for Walmart, $1.29 Christmas special. So you can't ask your supplier to do the packaging if he's going to know who is the end buyer and what is the pricing point you're selling in the market. So quite often, the buyer would purchase the components in China, ship it overseas, and then do the final inspection and assembly back home, where you can control the security. That might work if you have good margins, but when you consider that the cost of packaging and labor to assemble and do packaging is much lower in China, you're eating away so much of your margin by doing that final work back in the U.S. or overseas. Another level of integration that we hear a lot about, especially in the past few years, the term a captive supplier. What this really means is that you're a large buyer with a mid-sized Chinese factory, where you bring so much to the table in terms of your business that they're not going to compromise that by cheating on you. So it makes a lot of sense early on, but the danger is you work with this captive supplier. It's a relationship based on contractual framework. You have a non-disclosure, non-compete in place, but you spend a lot of time educating your supplier, and then they grow. The experience you've given to them allows them to market their company more effectively. Next thing you know, you're not their biggest buyer anymore. You're just another buyer for them, and it might become a competitor in the future. So it's hard to keep a captive supplier legitimate partner for long term. You could say it's like the animal kingdom. The bigger the animal, the harder it is to control the beast. So as factory grows, it's going to become more and more difficult to control them. Option 4 is the most dangerous, but certainly the most common, and that's the traditional buyer-seller relationship. Come to a trade show, here's the product I'd like to buy, please make it for me, and structure a purchase order. It's the most common because it's the easiest to set up. However, it's the most dangerous because of the lack of control. So today I really want to focus on that method of buying in China, the traditional buyer-seller relationship, and give you some simple tools that don't cost a lot of money yet can protect you down the road if you're going to choose that route. You could look at it from two phases.